Pro Football Focus rated Kingsley Enagbare as the 52nd rated prospect in this draft. He ended up getting selected as the 179th prospect in this draft in the 5th round to the Green Bay Packers. So that alone can get you excited. And I see why they were so high on him. I personally wasn't. I did not have him as one of my top 64 prospects in this draft, although there's things to really like about him. He had an insane pass rush win rate of 25.9. His pass rush PFF grade was 92.5. Guys who have those numbers typically work at the NFL level. They do. And so that alone is enough for me to say, yeah, you should draft him earlier than other teams were thinking of drafting him, just from that alone. Just looking at those two numbers if you haven't seen any tape. However, didn't love his tape. And also worth mentioning, even in the run defense, his run defense statistics, not very good. But could he be a third down pass rusher? Absolutely, given those numbers. But let's watch the tape and kind of talk about why he did fall so much despite having so much production. And kind of then at the end of this video, we'll talk about, should you draft someone who has production but not tape, or should you draft someone who has tape but not production? Obviously, the perfect scenario is both, but you don't always get that. So let's first jump into the film. I think something like this is a lot, this is the real way he got a lot of his wins, and this is concerning for me because, okay, A, it's good that you're winning, right? And something that I do believe in is if you're winning, and that should always be applauded. However, these kind of wins, I just don't know if they'll work at the NFL level, where what's going to happen is he's going up one-on-one against a left tackle, and you see him really just run by him. He's using full speed here, and the tackle is not able to get his hands on Enagbare here, whereas I just have to think that an offensive lineman in the NFL will be able to get his hands in the correct position. I just think that that's what's going to happen, or are athletic enough where they don't get burned like this, because that's something that, again, I did a study on this over a year ago now at this point, talking about how guys who primarily win with speed, there's a big bust factor, which is why I think it's fair to be a little lower on him. Again, he was 83rd on the consensus big board. He falls to 174, right? So I don't think it's fair to be that much lower on him, but that's probably the concern. Look, as you see, he is going to be able to finish this off and get the sack. So you get a sack there, but you get a sack on a move that probably won't work at the NFL level. At least a lot of times it doesn't. I guess it's a fair way to, better way to phrase it. Like this one's another one where what's going to happen here is you see where he is on the field. I have circled him in yellow, and watch what's going to happen. As you see, there's this inside move where he's going to get in between the guard and the tackle, and it looks like both the guard and the tackle are kind of, looking off to try and block the other South Carolina player here. So when Enagbare then gets through, he is again able to help bring the quarterback down there. So again, these are good plays. You'd rather him be making these plays than not making these plays, and he did make these plays really consistently. It's just, does he have ability to grow if these things go away? Something like this is another very fascinating play and kind of what he can do. And this is something he can do well, and it will help him at the NFL level to some degree, right? And again, for a 5th round pick, it's a steal. Like that alone, there's no reason he should have fallen that far. But anyways, you see where he is on the field, and watch what happens. Look, as you see, he is going to get the inside pressure. The guard tries to pick him up. But there's a little bit of pressure here. This is not a great situation because of what Enagbare was able to do with his, that initial first step right at the beginning. And then as you see, he's able to power forward because he is a pretty strong guy. And again, to some degree, being an NFL edge rusher is using speed to get yourself in a favorable position, and then someone, doesn't have the strength to then push you away, which is kind of what Enagbare does. I mean, you could say the same thing about Khalil Mack a little bit. Obviously, Mack's way better at it and, way faster, way stronger, and has way better hands. But other than that, basically the same. I'm simply just saying there are some stylistic similarities, although definitely not quite as good at it. Like again, something like this is another great example. Going up one-on-one against a left tackle, and watch what happens. As you see, Enagbare, again, going to just run to the side, gets his hands involved a little bit. This is nice to see. I mean, he doesn't really get his hands involved much at all, which again, you could argue can go two different ways, right? The one side of the argument is, okay, he doesn't get his hands involved. That's bad. He needs to get his hands involved because you're going to get more pressures if you get your hands involved. The flip side is that's something you can accomplish, is getting your hands involved. That's something that you have the ability to do. If there's an issue of someone not being strong enough, okay, I don't know how much stronger you can get. You can get a little stronger, but you're an adult at this point. How much stronger can you really get? However, if you don't have the best technique, you can improve on technique, but obviously, that still is a skill, and there still is, these guys are, like I said, adults. Why hasn't he gotten there in the first place? But maybe he just hasn't had the proper coaching. We just don't know. As you see, he is going to be able to get over and get the sack once again. So again, these are good plays by number 52 for South Carolina, who you also might have noticed is wearing number 1 at times. He wore 2 different numbers in college, which is why we're seeing some different numbers, but it is the same player. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about Enagbare as a player. Also, I hope I'm saying his name correctly. It's a difficult name to say, not one I've heard before, so apologies if I butchered it for the whole video. But that's kind of how I feel about him as a player. He is someone who it's fascinating. He's just a fascinating player, and I'm always interested in these kind of guys where has production, but it just doesn't look as impressive on tape. And I feel like, for me personally, anytime there's someone like that at the edge rusher position, I lean towards draft him. Again, it has to be mentioned, the value of this selection. So you're getting someone who many people had, some people had a mid-second round grade on. Plenty of people had, the consensus was a mid-third round grade on him, and he went after punters and kickers in this draft at 179. I think I said 174 earlier. Again, not making a huge difference. The guy who was selected at 179 last year, the Dallas Cowboys selected Simi Fehoko, Fehoko, another difficult name. Maybe that's a prerequisite for getting drafted 179, who had 7 snaps last year. So that's the kind of value you're expecting from pick 179. A guy who gets you 7 snaps, maybe plays some special teams. That's what you're expecting with this selection. I mean, we're talking just a handful of selections away from being a 6th rounder. So it's a very late 5th rounder, which, again, punters went before him. I just think that's crazy. I don't get that at all. I get the concerns with him. I do. I had concerns. If you watched my top 10, my podcast where I gave my list of every prospect, I talked about him briefly and how my concerns of him and why I did not have him as a top 15 defensive lineman, because I did 15 for them because there's so many good ones. There are some concerns to be had. He is a boomer bust prospect. So draft a boomer bust prospect in round 5, because I don't think this is like a 2% chance he hits. To me, I feel like this kind of guy has a much higher chance of hitting than the great athlete who you have to teach how to play football. This isn't really that with Enagbare. And again, he's 6'1", although he is 258, so he's big, but he's not that tall. So maybe that's part of the concern. I also think it's worth mentioning he just recently turned 22, so he's a younger prospect who has the ability to grow. So that's less concerning than if he was 24, right? So again, do I think he's going to be a superstar if I had to bet on it? No, probably not. But could he at least be like a contributor who could come in on obvious pass situations and play well? Yeah, I could see that. So that's what I think about him. And I think there's a chance that, I think there's a better chance that, listen, he was a much better college player than Trayvon Walker, who went 1st overall. So there you go. At least in terms of what they did in college. So that's kind of interesting. But that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.